So, Eric, the holidays are almost upon us, and I was thinking about getting gifts for people, right, as we do. Just it made me reflect on, when I think about the last few years, what are gifts that I've received that I've really loved, and what are things that I've purchased myself or asked for that I've gotten a lot of benefit from. And so this idea of impactful purchases percolated up, and you and I had some exchanges about it, and we thought, what a good idea for a show. Talk about, different sort of price points of things that we have received or bought for ourselves that have had really great impact on our lives.
Yeah, I like this idea. And actually, I made this video about my studio and I called it like a minimalist studio or whatever. And I remember somebody commenting on the video very early on. They're like, minimalist, that studio is full of stuff, And I started thinking about, I just helped my parents move. They moved from their house in the Northeast. They moved to the South. And we just ended up throwing a lot of things out. So I liked this idea of impactful purchases, especially as we start to frame it against the fire community. We're intentional spenders. We like to plan things out. We like to be intentional with how we spend our money and invest it. And, thinking about where we're at in the economic climate right now, inflation is hitting us. Everyone's dollar you have to be wise in how you're spending things. So I like this as a topic idea. We did come up with a couple of different buckets. Why don't you tell us what the idea that you had for this was?
Yeah. So what we agreed on is kind of two kind of classes of things. And the first would be items under $50. And then the second, maybe a little more luxurious, would be items that are under $250.
We each have a couple of different items for each one of these categories. And we tried not to make them the kind of trite items that you hear from everybody in these lists all the time. And hopefully it'll give you a little bit of color as to our own personal lives and how we think about the world pre-fi and post-fi.
Yeah, absolutely. And, honestly, I like that we're starting with the under 50 because I don't know about how this went for you. We didn't share our thought process, but this was harder for me, but also way more fun to think about the under 50s. And the first one is something that cost me just $5 and in fact was free. And I liked it so much that I paid $5 for the added features. And it's just this simple app. It's Apollo, which is a Reddit interface. So it's an app that you use to browse Reddit, which is certainly a community I spend a reasonable amount of time on, not just in the fire space, honestly, more than ever, just anything else. And, let's face it, the Reddit app, it's not so great. No offense if anyone who worked on it is listening to the show. I apologize. But I think Reddit, Reddit is such a rich community. There's a lot of places you can go, a lot to do. Comment threading. There's all these things that could just be a lot better, in my opinion. And thankfully, a developer out there has put together an app that I use every single day, multiple times a day. And it just makes it a better experience. So when you think about like how you spend your time, even on something that's very much entertainment driven, I don't know, that UI and UX, you want to be as good as it can be. So like, this is a great use of $5.
So when I am not a Reddit power user, although I spend a lot of time on Reddit, you're paying $5 for what added features? Is this saving you more time? Is it just making the user experience nicer? Like, describe for me why $5 is worth it.
It's a couple different things. I mean, so an easy one, multiple accounts. I have personal accounts. I have an account for the show that we use to manage our own subreddit, the Two Sides of Fi community. But then a lot of it is very driven to how I interface with Reddit. And that's just, automatically marking things red, as I read, things like, easy to collapse comment threads, just, clicking on the line and the whole thing rolls up.
Oh, okay.
Filtering is trivial to put in, if there's certain terms or things in more volatile communities, maybe you don't want to see or interact with. It's just very easy to, take all that out of your experience. And so it allows you to be more focused, more efficient. And honestly, it's just more pleasurable to have those kind of add-ons. And I feel like the list of things you get with that $5 is like this long.
Yep.
But I found that I didn't have to use it very long before I started looking and seeing what else can I do? This default experience is so good, but I don't know, man, just simple features like that. And I guess I would add to that, the guy who's developed it, this guy, Christian, he's very active on Reddit as well. He takes user feedback, and there's nothing that feels better than, being able to give your input and seeing it put to action.
Yeah, I love that. That's great. I mean, a $5 app that probably costs you a lot more in time.
Yeah.
than $5,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I always think of your "how much is your time worth" comment that you've,
Totally.
directed at me many times,
Yeah.
rightfully. And this is a good example of how I think I can at least slightly more efficiently use my time on something I'm enjoying.
All right. Unexpected. Here's my first one. My first one's it's actually free. So
Okay.
I don't know if this is a cheat or not, but as I think about things that have impacted my life greatly in the past, say, 10 years. But this is the Maker's Schedule, Manager's Schedule by Paul Graham. Okay, so Paul Graham is the founder of Y Combinator, and he wrote this essay. The basic precept of this is that every person's day, and anyone who's working right now, like me, who's pre-fi, can relate to this, is divided between two primary focus points. So it's making and managing. And the making, for me as an architect, is anything creative. It's design work. It's the kind of highest and best use of your time. If you're a writer, it's all the writing. Then, of course, there's the managing. And the managing consists of meetings, phone calls, emails, invoicing, all the stuff that you probably don't enjoy that much, right?
No.
And most of us, and this is actually how I operated most of my professional life, we intermingle those two things throughout the day. So as I'm sitting there designing an elevation or a floor plan, I'll get a phone call from a contractor who's having a problem. They need it solved right away. So I pull myself away from this creative, focused making time, and I have to slip on my manager's hat and answer that immediate question. And then when the question goes away, I have to then slip back into my creative mode, which is not easy to do. So there's a switching cost between making and managing. And all the essay basically describes doing is siloing those two things, keeping them separate. So you find a time, preferably it's the time when you're most creative, when you're most focused for the making. And that's the thing that's going to drive you forward professionally in your business, whatever it might be. And you dedicate that time, that silo, solely to that activity. Nobody interrupts you with email. Nobody interrupts you with phone calls. And you set your schedule up so that the making time is separate from the managing time. And for me, I take those two silos and I split them with exercise. And so I'm making in the morning because that's typically, I get up early. I'm typically making things. I'm most creative. I'm most focused in the morning. And then by the time it gets to be the afternoon, the managing time, that tends to be later and later in the day now. But anytime from say 2 p.m. on, I'm doing all of those tasks, answering emails, having meetings, phone calls, things like that. The middle of the day, to split between those two tasks, I set it up with exercise. And I know not everyone can set up their days like this. I definitely feel privileged to be able to do that. But in terms of an impactful, 10-minute read, that has made a huge difference in my life. And so as I think about organizing things and organizing my entire life, that thing is the thing that then follows on with all of these other kind of purchase items here.
Yeah.
That makes sense?
Yeah, no, it's a really fascinating idea. For sure, we have to link that article in the show notes because not only do I want to read it, I'm sure other people can benefit from it, even if not everybody has exactly the same flexibility in their day. Was it natural kind of how to split up your day, or did you have to experiment and figure out, the ordering or, the duration? I mean, help me understand how that kind of went.
Here's how I thought about it, Jay. I found myself and when I first started my business, I found myself getting to the end of the day and realizing I had done nothing creative at all. All I had done was just answer other people's priority lists. And so, and I'm sure everyone can relate to this, and I know my wife, she carves time out on the weekends to do, her creative, productive work for her own lab. And that's just because that's the time when no one's knocking on her door. Yeah. And for me, it was an easy decision because what I said was, I'm going to take all of that time that people are, contractors get to work at 7:30 in the morning and they quit at 3:30. And I'm just going to say, that's my most productive time. And too bad if they can only fit their questions into 1 hour of the day, they're going to learn that to set their next day up, they're going to call me in the afternoon and they're going to ask all the questions that came up during the day. And it took a short period of time to teach everybody who I was working with that I don't answer texts in the morning. I don't schedule meetings in the morning. I don't, all of these this kind of operating system, I took control of it.
Right.
And there's so much freedom in owning that creative time. And I just found that the amount of work that I was able to get done and how I felt about the work I was doing changed almost immediately by doing that. So it's just kind of flipping the day.
I got it. Okay. Yeah. I mean, that's super cool. I can see how that would be really impactful. Although I have to tell you, on the flip side, it makes me feel like my next item is just a throwaway.
No way. No, it shouldn't. And honestly, like for me, organizing my world is time well spent and money well spent. And there are things that are going to feel trivial by comparison, believe me. So let's hear your next one.
Well, I got to tell you, I would be a bad Gen Xer, and maybe you are a bad Gen Xer. I don't know. I'd be a bad Gen Xer if I didn't put video games on this list.
Yeah.
And
I knew it.
You know, I've kind of always had all the consoles and handhelds and really been into gaming. And yeah, like many people, it kind of took a backseat for a while, or certainly, got deprioritized with parenting and hours at work, et cetera. And, you kind of stick it on the weekends. But, I got thinking about video games and I was like, man, like all the modern era consoles, like those games tend to be like $59.95.
Oh, yeah.
So can't fit them in my $50 list. And, I know that I have purchased games that are a lot cheaper that have been super fun and impactful. And so I decided to focus on those, and I kept them all in the under $50 list. And I have 3 different price points.
Okay.
So the first and probably the most fun game, certainly most fun party game that we've come up with is part of the Jackbox series of games. I don't know if you've heard about them. They have them on Steam for Switch and probably some other consoles too. But Party Pack 3 is this set of a few different games, and one of them, and by the way, that party pack costs $10.
Nice.
They go on sale all the time. There's just one game called TKO where it's hard to describe, so I won't take all my time on it, but it involves like designing sayings for t-shirts and insane pictures, and they end up getting married to each other, and you kind of vote individually. And so it's this like party game, and depending on how inappropriate your friends are, and maybe if you've had any wine or beer beforehand, it goes off the rails fast. So it's
nice.
Super fun, like cheap entertainment, but gosh, is it great.
What's the interface for it? Is it like you said you don't have to have a console?
Yeah, you actually don't. There has to be the usual, like there's one console or one PC, running the game, and then you just use your iPhones or tablets or whatever smartphone you have to interface with the game. And so it's actually really lightweight in that way, and it's not something you have to plan for, and it's not like doing kind of online gaming where you both need the game and internet connection and all that. So it's super fun.
Is it something you can play like remotely with other people, or is that more difficult to do?
Yeah, it is because you have to kind of. I guess you can do it. People did them over Zoom, during like lockdown and stuff like that. You just need to be able to display one screen.
Okay. I don't know if you had like an Xbox Live account, you could hook up with some of your friends and play it that way.
Good question. Yeah. I feel like my daughter would know the answer to that better than I would, but
I would
probably do it over
man.
Zoom if I was playing with people who weren't in the same room.
$10, man. That's good. That's a good find. I love games.
Exactly. So I have picks at the $20 and $30 tier too for people who want to be a little more spendy.
Okay.
The next 2 are both games that I bought for myself in the last 2 years for Oculus Quest. And so that's VR headset. I got it during actually right after my retire early date. This was like a little gift to myself that I convinced myself I had earned, whatever reason. I'm very good at justifying cost. And 2 games that I got that I've continued to enjoy and go back to. The first is a game called Moss. That was $20. It's a puzzle platformer. So it's got, lots of action, but it's also got puzzles you've got to solve. But it's this combination of a really, beautiful art and visuals and soundscape with the kind of VR headset. So it's immersive. Nice. It's a nice kind of escape game. It's got reasonable replay value for something that you do figure out. It's not something you're going to play, week after week, but I really got kind of immersed in it when I got it. And it's one of those games I've recommended to anybody who got an Oculus Quest or now Meta Quest. I just think it's a really great game, and it's tough to beat for $20.
Okay. Sounds awesome, man.
All right. Last on the video games list. My favorite, again, for Oculus is Beat Saber. It's a rhythm game. It's pretty famous at this point. It's available on Steam for, other headsets as well. It's not limited to this platform, but it's just super fun. I've always been into rhythm games, but this is one that, it's a little more active.
Sure.
Because you're standing and you're kind of, waving your arms around like an idiot. Definitely the type of game you do not want somebody to come in the room and see you playing because you look like a fool. And if you embarrass easily like me, it's that much worse. But Yeah, it's just cool because it combines something I love, which is music, like you. It's really fun. It's active, and it's something that has like almost infinite replay value because with mods you can download other people's kind of songs, and it's super fun, and it never gets old.
If you had to describe it, is it like you smashing things with a lightsaber, like while you're dancing, or like I'm
Yes,
having a hard
it
time.
is.
Okay.
It's exactly what it is. So as the default kind of game is set up, you have like a blue saber and a red saber, and of course mods can change those too. And there's like flying blocks, and because it's a VR game, it's very immersive. And yes, you are smashing blocks and moving and ducking under things. So it's reasonably active for a video game. It's enjoyable because you can just crank it up and listen to songs you like anyway. And yeah, it's super fun. $30, hard to believe.
How many broken TVs have you suffered as a result of this?
Personally, 0, because I use wrist straps, but there are definitely videos of lots of terrible things happening with Oculus Quest games.
This could have some attendant costs with it.
For sure. I recommend always use those wrist straps, whether you're playing the Wii or you're playing something like this, because throwing controllers through your nice TV is not good for anybody or for your budget, mind you.
I think I saw this over Thanksgiving, someone, hooking one of their relatives up to one of these, VR headsets and like doing a football pass to them, and the guy like ran into the wall, like straight into the wall. So I've never tried this. It sounds pretty appealing to me though.
I think I messed up when you came out here that I didn't strap you into this thing. So I guess you and Laura do have to come out this year, and then you can try it.
Okay, definitely. It's on the list, man.
All right, man. So I mired you in video games long enough. What do you got?
Okay, man. So we're going from the digital back to the analog. I feel like, California is the cool state. Maine is like the state that's maybe 10 or 15 years behind. So
I don't know about that.
I'm back in the analog world here, man. So as I talk about setting up my days for making and managing and splitting it with exercise, the making part of my day, I think about this with respect to like meta skills. And I don't know if you're familiar with meta skills, but the way I think about meta skills are the kind of higher order skills that you learn that are forcing functions for other things in your life, self-improvement, getting better at, photography makes me a better communicator, a better marketer, I can make a side hustle out of it. So these kind of meta skills I really try and develop, and especially as fitting them into the making part of my day. One of the big things is sketching. So I'm always sketching for my job, but sketching is one of those skills, this kind of visual communication skill that I think a lot of people can benefit from. And I know actually you are taking an art course coming soon, right?
I am. Yeah. Lori and I both signed up for a class at the community college, and
that's awesome,
back
man.
In the classroom.
So, a sketchbook, and I have always defaulted to the Muji sketchbooks. But in fact, they stopped making the one that I liked. So I started making my own. And so I made this kind of trace sketchbook, which is just like a vellum kind of sketch paper. But this goes with me everywhere I go. It's just a little dot grid sketchbook. It kind of fits in the hand. I really like a small sketchbook. Some people like the sort of field note sketchbooks. I love those too for just note taking. This is my visual note taking. Paired with this is a good mechanical pencil. I happen to like sketching with mechanical pencil. They're not for everybody. This one is the Kurutoga made by Uni. And the cool thing about this mechanical pencil is at the tip here, with a mechanical pencil, as you're using it, it kind of creates this kind of chisel point. Yeah. But with this one, every time you press down and you make a stroke, it actually rotates the lead. There's a little mechanism in here that rotates the lead just a little bit. So as you're sketching and drawing, it's always keeping a fine point on it. So I love this paired with my sketchbook. And of course, to put all that together, I have this little pencil case, and this is like super nerdy, like, I don't know, middle school kind of stuff, but for an architect, I love this. And actually there's a future tool that I also fit in here as well. This is made by Bellroy. It's just a little pencil case. It's kind of a duck canvas pencil case. It actually can hold a ton of pencils, rulers, colored pencils, and it actually folds open to sit flat and open on the desk. So of course I have erasers and stuff in here too. But this just fits neatly in my bag, and it's got this little loop on the end of it. Hopefully this isn't too loud here. It's got this little carrying loop on the end of it, so you can just kind of pick it up and go. You can clip it to your bag. Super useful. And these are tools that I use every day of my life, along with Procreate. So Procreate is the
yeah.
only digital thing here. That's my digital sketchbook. And I actually, it's $10 for that app. And I literally use it every day. It's like having access to every item in an art supply store at your fingertips. I mean,
Yeah.
every kind of brush, marker, pen, charcoal, you're not getting your hands dirty. It's just a beautiful thing. So I realize you also have to have an iPad to go with that. So yeah, $10, but it also requires an iPad to go with it. But, you know, most of us stopped drawing in grade school. And a lot of it is looking around and seeing other people who have a natural ability and talent for drawing. But I'll tell you, for me, drawing is thinking, and this is how I solve problems. And I think if more people learned to draw and not put so much pressure on themselves to make the perfect sketch, you come up with different solutions. You really do. And Procreate has been amazing for that.
Yeah, no, I definitely will spend some time. I'm sure I will want to spend more time with it too once I just start drawing again. So we didn't plan it this way, but I like that you went from an analog to digital, and I'm going to take it back to analog. See, I can do this too. It's not all video games, and it's a book.
Oh man, I love books. Yes.
Dude, the Wine Folly Magnum Edition Master Guide, which I recall showing to you when you came to visit me.
I love that book.
A year ago. It's such a great book, right? I mean, for people that haven't seen it, it's got these like crazy beautiful diagrams and maps, and just everything about it is like, it's so thoughtful. And, you know, you think like, well, it's a book about wine. And, you know, I got it because I was, you know, after I started working a day a week at a tasting room, because like, yeah, I know about wine, but I would like to broaden my knowledge about wine, and came upon this book, which I saw on YouTube, and I bought it, and I was like, wow, it's a really great book. And, you know, it just got me thinking about kind of all the possibilities in wine, and did I want to do something, you know, from a job perspective in this space beyond what I was doing. And it's, you know, it's just this book that cost $20.
Yeah. You know, when you showed me that book, when I came out to visit you, I had that same reaction. I was like, Jason knows a lot about wine, and this is very interesting to me. And that book just, you can go as deep as you want almost.
Exactly.
And I know it's not to the level that you're at being a certified wine taster now, but you know, like I brought it out at Thanksgiving because we had some guys who just turned 21 and they're having some wine, and they're like, I don't know what I'm looking for. And you can pull that book out and point to the flavors or the dominant flavors in a wine and say, this is what you're looking for. This is like the beginning, the mid, you know, the mid palate, the finish. And
exactly.
And it starts to make sense. And I love that it's such a beautiful book.
So Madeline Paquette, who's one of the founders and the face of Wine Folly, she's got a YouTube channel. It's phenomenal if you don't follow it. I wish I got advertising kickbacks from them for saying this. I do not, but they're wonderful. And that channel brought me to it. The reason I mention that is she's a graphic designer. And clearly that plays into their visual approach. But I mean, the fact that it's a James Beard award-winning book means that it's clearly, I'm sure at this point, sold a lot of copies. And so I'm sure the effort they put into making it beautiful has paid off. But I have to tell you, something you said there is actually a really good jumping off point, and that is the depth. So I loved the depth of the book, but honestly, and what was surprising is it made me want more. And reading that book is one of the reasons that I decided to take more coursework. And I took the Wine Spirit Education Trust Level 2 course. Took me a few months to go through the curriculum, attend the classes, do the tastings, take the big test at the end. And, you know, that book was a key part of me just getting that much more interested. And, you know, I didn't need that for work. You know, my boss actually made fun of me for taking the course because he's like, you know, don't be putting that on your business card that you've got certifications now. We're not that kind of winery. And he's right. You know, we keep it pretty casual, but it was just personal education. And that course cost more than the price range that we are limiting ourselves to today. But it was super worthwhile. And it came about, you know, it was just another step on the journey that originated in reading this book. So yeah, it was super cool.
I love it, man. Yeah. Books they just open so many doors. I mean, I'm surrounded by books in my studio, and I can't get enough of them. And I know we're going to talk more about that in the future here.
We are. What else you got?
My next one is, you know, I split my day between making and managing with exercise, and I am lucky enough to live near a national park. I guess this doesn't fit in the under 50 category, does it?
No, isn't it 75 or 80?
It's $80. But if you are a resident of this area, you can actually buy one for $20 to get into Acadia National Park. So,
got it. Yep.
So maybe that's where it fits. But honestly, a national park pass for $80, entering any park in the U.S. for a year is a complete bargain. And I know you are even more traveled than I am with respect to national parks, but every summer we take our kids to, who are no longer kids, they're like adults,
No,
but
they are.
That was our family tradition. And I think that's true for a lot of people that's probably the cheapest thing you do on your vacation is buy the national park pass. And it just opens so many doors. I think it's an immense value. The other thing that I'll say with exercise is, and this may thread in with some of your things. I love these neck gaiters, and Buff makes one. If you've ever watched Survivor, I think you're a Survivor fan, right?
I am.
The buffs that you can wear in 10 different ways. You can wear it as a headband, a neck collar. You can turn into a balaclava. Do you like
to wear it as a tube top as well?
I have not tried that, actually.
I kid. Clearly, some people on the show wear it as a tube top, but I'm not one of them.
Yeah, I didn't realize. Is that a special kind of buff? Because, oh my God, I'd struggle to think how I would make that into a tube top, man.
I think some of the people on that show are very small people.
Okay, yeah. This, along with like an ear cuff, and there's an ear cuff that Outdoor Research makes that is less than $30. Amazing, because when I go hiking every day, especially in like 3 seasons out of the year here, it is cold and it's really windy. And
coldest place I've lived, man.
Yeah, this thing, you can just cinch it up here, and really, quite often I'm just wearing it as kind of a face mask, to keep the wind out, and also because I'm always wearing ear pods when I'm hiking to listen to podcasts and things. It's great for that. So that's less than $50 for sure.
It's definitely less than $50, and I think you still get full credit for the Parks Pass because clearly, you visit 2 properties in a year and you just divide that in half. So it's covered.
Okay, cool, man. I like it.
Covered. I think it's a buy. We've had one. I feel like we've had one every year. Gosh, more than 20 years. We've had one. I'm not old enough for the perpetual pass, so I just keep buying it every year.
You're getting close.
Oh, come on, man. Not yet. We are ready to jump up unless you have another under 50 hidden on your list.
I do, actually.
All right, then you got to go again.
Okay, man. I got to finish out the managing part of my day. I manage my entire life with Notion. Notion has
Tell me about that.
They have a free program, and they also have a personal pro, which is $4 a month, which gives you some upgraded features. If you're working with a team, collaborating with a bunch of people, if you want to have unlimited uploads, I don't know. Do you pay for the personal pro plan?
I do not. Tell me what I'm missing.
Okay. So Notion is like a life wiki, essentially. It's the all-in-one kind of productivity and collaboration tool. It's a very simple, minimalist interface, and I actually use the free version myself. And I set up my maker schedule, manager schedule in here. I have my template. I'll put the links for that in the show notes. Totally, completely free. You can use my template. I have all of my sort of work tasks. I have my weekly schedule. It encompasses every aspect of my personal life. So if I have a maintenance schedule, I just write the maintenance schedule once in there and it's done. I know how to rotate the tires. I know when that's coming up. There's a scheduling function. There's Kanban boards. Like, you can use this almost in any way you choose. If I have a reading list, I put, if I'm listening to a podcast and I know there's a book I want, I pop it on the reading list on the up next, and then when I'm done, I kind of have I create a little wiki page for it. It's like, oh, here's what I learned in this book. Here's when I read it. I mean, you can take this as far as you want. And I know there are people online that get a little bit nutty with it, but I'm not sure I could actually live without Notion at this point. You use it too, right?
Yeah, I do. But man, that is a huge statement. I love it. I kind of want to get to that level, honestly. But help me understand, if you can, just like, did you try a bunch of different like planning and organization tactics before you found this? And how the heck did you stumble on this in the first place and now have stuck with it for what I think is probably years, right?
Yeah, 2020 is when I stumbled on this one. And I had been using Asana prior to that. Have you used that one?
We used it at work. I wasn't like a power user or anything, but I was familiar with it and had a little experience with it.
Yeah. It just wasn't right for me, and the interface wasn't great, and I felt like I was working too hard. You know, sometimes you feel like you're working too hard to make the productivity tool work for you.
100%.
I had used Evernote in the past, and
Me too.
I mean, I was finding like I loved the search function in Evernote, but it also felt to me like just a big pile of sticky notes that was really disorganized. And so the thing I liked about Notion, and I saw a YouTube video about it, maybe 2 YouTube videos about it, and it was someone who's gone real deep on it. And I thought, oh wow, I could use that for, you know, my video projects. I could just set up a template here, and every time I want to start a new video, it pulls the template in. So I have a script there, and I have a shot list there, and like all these different little things. And then I realized, like, after using it over time, it's very easy. You know, it's very modular in the sense that there's a set of basic elements that you have to work with. And then you can invite people. Like you and I started using this very early on in this project to collaborate. And now we use it we're in Notion at least every day with this project that we're doing. For sure. So it's a great way. It's a great collaborative tool. So I think if you start looking at this, it feels a little intimidating at first, but there's these templates that I just started with a template, and then I modified the template because you can drag and drop it, and I created something that was useful for me. Ton of videos out there. I know the one thing I will say is it's not SSL encrypted or anything. Whatever information you put in here, you better be comfortable with it being out and available to people. So I know some people are not comfortable with that. The way we use it, we're not putting secure information in there. No. You know, we're not putting passwords in there or anything like that. So I feel like it's pretty safe in that regard.
Yeah, I think so. No, I'm definitely appreciative that you brought it to my attention. I was using it for my personal life a lot more when I first started, and for no good reason I got away from it, and I actually missed some of the benefit. So I really do need to maybe seeing your templates, since I'm sure you've revised them over time. I'm sure they're going to make me want to get back into it. So I will check it out.
Okay. Hey, one last thing that I wanted to say for my under 50, and that is travel guides. And, you know, this is on the book theme. So we're going to Japan coming up in the spring.
Favorite.
Yeah, and you've been helping me with, you know, ideas for that. But the thing about travel guides is it extends the big spend of the vacation. You know, going to Japan is not a cheap vacation, obviously. But this applies to any trip that we take. You know, Laura and I will buy a couple of travel guides, and for a small amount of money, you get to start living the trip like today. And I love kind of reading them and developing itineraries and thinking about what we're going to do and thinking about the place before we get there. It kind of stretches out that spend for very little money. You know, it's just, it changes the enjoyment level for me. Do you use travel guides at all, or are you just,
we used them a lot in the past. In the past, we used them a lot. Even just thinking back to our first trip to Japan, which now is, 10 years ago, I think we had travel guides at that time. I feel like we got away from them some since then, or maybe we'll look at something in the library and kind of take some notes that will lead us to, kind of the typical online journey. But I mean, they are nice to go back to too. And, some things don't change very quickly. So, I mean, I do like that idea. I like this concept of, like, if I can call it, amortizing the cost of a vacation over longer periods of time. Yeah. It's kind of a nice mental exercise, but it's got basis too. I don't
not
think
the cost, but also the value.
Like the value is what I meant, not the cost.
Yeah.
That's a much better way to put it.
I mean, you were pointing to me to some online resources too. And that's just as valid. It doesn't have to be a sort of physical travel guide. Sometimes what I find when I'm online, the hypertext of the internet pulls me away to some other distraction.
Oh gosh, I'm the worst at that.
So anyway, having a physical guide is, we're kind of flipping back and forth between the analog and the digital, aren't we?
We are. I'm going hardcore analog on this one.
Okay,
we should probably so we're going to jump up. It's going to be under 250. Okay. And I want to be clear. I didn't put too many constraints on myself and how I thought about this list, but I knew I didn't want to just live at the top end. Like, let's see how many things I can find over $200 that are amazing. Smart. And honestly, it didn't take me that long to think about like really impactful stuff that was under $100. And the most analog on that list, but also what I realized, one of my favorite things I have purchased in the last few years. I'm probably going to hurt myself trying to show this to you, but I'm going to do my best.
Okay.
I love props.